If it's happening in Burbank, you ought to know, so tune in to the Mike and Roy Show.
And now,
Mike and Roy.
hello, Burbankers!
And welcome back to the Mike and Roy Show. We have a special guest with us today.
Hey,
Konstantine
Anthony's here.
Anthony.
Hello, hello.
Nice to have you here. And, well, your shirt's kind of showing your hand a little bit.
Oh, yes.
While you're here.
I've tipped my hat.
Yes, you tipped your hand. But we're excited. We've already put out a video kind of stating our stance, if you will, on Measure QS. But we do, in the spirit of dialogue, and like we encourage some other people in town that don't quite always do that, we try to keep an open both-way conversation going. So this is a big deal for anybody in Burbank.
Yep, and Konstantine, you were on the show before.
Yep.
We really like to get both sides of an issue out,
Sure.
like Roy said, and we want people to know all the facts. And sometimes, like Roy said, we feel that one side won't, share all the facts, and people don't really know exactly what they're voting on. This really helps us to hear your side. People who watch the Mike and Roy show have heard what we have to say and why we oppose Measure QS. Tell us why people should vote for it.
And tell folks what it is.
Sure,
first,
sure.
'cause a lot of people might not know.
Sure, they might be tuning in just now.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for bringing me on. Many of folk would just close their doors and shut out other opinions, and I appreciate you taking the time to have someone with a lovely shirt.
And you had the courage to come. I mean, this is hostile territory. That's all.
You look very nice in lavender.
Thank you. Thank
Kudos
you
to
very
you
much.
for coming.
Thank you very much. You guys are not as hostile as you think. You're very nice gentlemen. Thank you for bringing me on. For those folks at home, Measure QS is a ballot measure that's going to be on your November ballot. If you've already gotten them in the mail, it's all the way at the back. It's the city measures. They always put the federal stuff up front, and people forget to scroll to the back and flip through the pages. They see their congressperson and their senator, and then they go home. So make sure you read through your whole ballot. That's just a regular, general point for voting. Always look through everything, read the whole ballot, that whole deal. Specifically, I'm here today to talk about QS. It's a measure to raise $9 million every year for the Burbank Unified School District. When I talk to people about it, they always ask me a couple of pretty standard questions. They say, is that money just for Burbank? Does it go to LAUSD? Does it go to LA County? Sure. Just for Burbank. So one of the biggest reasons I'm for this measure is because it stays local. We have local control. It's our money. We get to decide what to do with it. Your kids benefit from that money, so it stays here in the border of Burbank. Second, they always ask me, well, how much am I going to pay for it? So let's get into the facts, and then we'll go into my opinion about it. The Measure QS itself adds a 10 cents per square foot parcel tax on developed property. What that means is every square foot that you can live in your home, your second floor, not your driveway, not your lawn. Same thing with businesses. Anywhere that you can run a business, that you can have customers in, not the parking lot, not the unexcavated alley in the back. So the property, the developed property, that's what the tax is on. Right. They did an estimate. The average homeowner in Burbank is about 1,700 square feet, so that translates to about $170 a year. A lot of people ask, is that every month? I don't know. It's just $170 a year. That's the average. Some people pay more, some people pay less.
Of course, with a palatial estate like this, who can only guess what it's going to cost me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
The millionaires who live in this house.
The Mike and Roy Show, we interject humor, such as we call it.
At some
It
point,
can happen at any point.
At some point, you'll find some humor.
Yeah, anyway. But please, go on, sir.
So that's the basic idea of what the tax is for, and a lot of people are worried that this tax can be used for other things and not what they say it's for. Now, the $9 million, the estimated $9 million that comes from not just homeowners, the apartment buildings have to pay it,
businesses,
the small businesses, the large businesses,
right.
Everyone who's got developed property, they got to pay into this thing. And as the ballot measure is written, if you get your ballot at home, you can actually go through it. They list very specific things that they want this to pay for. And the best part about it is, at the very end of the ballot measure, they're going to create a Citizens Oversight Committee. So if you and I don't agree with them, if we don't feel that they've covered the things that they said they were going to cover, we could bring this to their attention, and in theory, we could file a lawsuit and go through that whole business and get the money back, cancel the ballot measure, force them to do what we want them to. They wrote it into the measure because a lot of folks, especially in this day and age, especially with the way politics is heated and people say one thing and do something else, if it's not there in writing, then we can't use it against the people in power. And so there was a lot of folks, a lot of ideas, a lot of heads put together to write this thing out because we wanted everything specifically put into words. So they have smaller class sizes. That is written into the measure. It has to be smaller. They can't just say it's smaller. We actually need to see the numbers of the students. They want to add...
By how much? Can I ask that, like, from... Can I ask you that numbers?
They were
From
doing
what to what?
They were doing estimates. I haven't seen actual hard numbers.
Okay.
Here's the thing though. When you look at laws, especially in California, when you have a law on the books and they say they're going to do something,
Yeah.
if they lower the class size by one kid, there's no reasonable judge that if you bring this lawsuit to them and say, "Hey, that's not really what you were doing." There's letter of the law and there's spirit of the law. When they say smaller class sizes, I personally want to see 2 or 3 less kids in the schools.
Okay.
I want to see 20 go to 17. I want to see 30 go to 27.
Okay.
That's me personally. Again, this is all going to have to worked out with the Citizens Oversight Committee. This is us going to the school board meetings on Thursdays. If you haven't been, go on Thursday. Give them a piece of your mind. If you like what they're doing, if you don't like what you're doing, show up. And this is us keeping them accountable. And for them to put the Citizens Oversight Committee in that, it allows us to hold them accountable. So no, I don't have those hard numbers.
Okay.
And again, this is, where opinion and fact are different,
And one thing, like, I don't think anybody disagrees with you on the fact that lower numbers in our classrooms would be really great for our students and for us. Isn't that going to create a need for more teachers?
It is,
and even more salaries and more pension liability.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that Roy and I are arguing against Measure
And facilities,
QS.
the space to put those
Absolutely.
classes.
More schooling, more school classrooms. Yes, absolutely.
What is your answer to that? When now this money, we need it because our teachers need a raise.
Right.
They need a raise. We know that. We want them to get it. But if they pass this parcel tax and they start getting their raises out of this parcel tax, eventually, from what we're hearing, the whole parcel tax is going to teachers' salaries, benefits,
Sure.
and then we compound that with smaller class sizes and the need for more teachers. One of our arguments against it. So I want to hear what you have to say about
Okay.
that and convince us that shouldn't be our concern.
Sure. I'm not going to paint a rosy picture for you. It's not perfect. This measure is not written to cure all of those long-term systemic problems in the way education is funded in the state of California. We have a deficit. The governor has stated very clearly that we are fully funded in education to 2008 levels. Well, that's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we need to keep up, not just with inflation, but the cost of housing, the cost of living, and all that. I hope, and my heart is really hoping for this, that the state legislator and whoever the new governor is going to be fully funds education. There's a 2-year legislative term and then another 6 to 18 months for implementation. We're talking maybe 3-4 years down the line. I got a kid in 1st grade. He's in school right now. So when people say it's just a short-term fix, I can't not disagree with them because we need something now. We can always... there's 2 options. If this passes, you can always ask the school board, hey, maybe take it off in a couple of years. Or, hey, I as a citizen can get signatures and put a ballot measure on to take off the debt.
That's daunting.
It is daunting.
Yeah,
it is daunting.
Get enough signatures to overturn something when it's on the books,
Because
it's possible.
It is
yes,
possible.
I agree with you.
Putting it at 10%, 10 cents though, sticks it at a solid number at a time where in 2018, it will do a lot of good. But 10, 20, 30 years down the line, 10 cents isn't going to do much. And in fact, $170 a year today is kind of, it hits the checkbook. In 5, 10, 20 years down the line, it may not be. So even if we do nothing, if this passes and we do nothing, over time it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's why they didn't attach it to inflation or the cost of your home or whatever the property value is, because that would have to grow as well. By setting it at a solid number, it's going to be weakened if you don't touch it over time. Because we need something now. we don't know what funding is going to be like in 10 years. So again, I'm not saying this is a perfect measure. I will say that it's better than the alternative, and for me, looking at the alternative is doing nothing.
Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, I want to thank you for answering that, Konstantine. I did, I know what I wrote down. So, one of my questions, and we might have chatted about this, but it should be part of the show too, because I think a lot of people have questions about this part. It's a two-pronger. The fact that there's no sunset clause in this, most measures, if you will, every 4 to 7 years, there's that option of where it's re-looked at, and if it's not working, and I know you said, we could overturn it with signatures and things like that. But just like the other measure going on in Burbank, there's no sunset clause in it. So I want you to talk about that. And also I want you to talk about, so I'm getting 2 questions in, sorry, Mike, that we talk about businesses paying their fair share. One of my concerns, talked to a few other people too, when you're a big store, let's say Ralph's, or you're REI or Lowe's or Target or, dare I say, IKEA, I have a real concern that those costs are going to be passed. So they're going to pay much more than $170 a year. Sure. History has shown generally when businesses incur more cost, generally it's passed on to the consumer. So for some folks getting double taxed, if you will, or double measured, in Burbank, you can see where I'm going with that. So what are your feelings on those 2 things?
Okay, let's do, all right, so the first part, the sunset clause. So I believe Glendale and South Pasadena both had, no, it's Glendale's passed one now. I want to say La Cañada in South Pasadena. They had parcel tax measures, and theirs expired on the sunset, and then they went back to the voters again, and the voters approved it again. Okay. 2 things. One, yes, in theory, every time you bring back a vote, the voters get to decide on if they like it or not. A parcel tax for school districts almost always passes again when it's passed the first time, and I'll go into why people like it in a little bit. But that it always gets re-upped, but at the same time, you're still paying to put it on the ballot.
I realize that. Yes.
Putting stuff on the ballot, getting those measures out, it's a chunk of change. At the same time, when you have investments in property, especially when we talk about a really hotbed of real estate that Burbank has become, especially in Southern California, when you put a sunset, you're putting, it's an insecurity. You can say, oh, in 4 years down the line, we don't know if it's going to be re-upped again. So realtors who are selling homes, people who are buying into the city, they go, oh, wait, in 4 years, there may not be enough money for the school district. I could move my kid in and have a great music class, and then in 3 years, it gets cut. So there's uncertainty, right? It makes for a volatile market. And, it's not the whole market, but it's a specific part of housing
aspect of it,
people with families in school district, it's tied together. The second part, the double measuring, that is true when it is a sales tax. So when someone goes into the store, they buy a hammer for $10. That sales tax comes after, so they pay that extra tax. But when you put the tax when it's on the parcel itself, that hammer, you can't sell a hammer for more or less than what someone's going to pay for it, right? So that $10, that's set by the market. It's not set by how much the cost of doing business in the town. Specifically, even more so, when you look at larger chain stores like Ralph's, like IKEA, like Walmart, their prices are set at the national level. Like that's regionally.
We could argue that.
There's all kinds of way to fudge that with coupons and special
coupons and sales, absolutely.
And
you'll have people swear up and down that Ralph's in Burbank are sometimes more expensive than Ralph's over in Van Nuys and things like that.
Yes, and yes, I will agree with that. And that is due to the people in Burbank are willing to pay more. And that's true if you try to buy gas in Beverly Hills, it's more than gas in North Hollywood. When you move district to district. But in those specific stores, if the cost of doing business, say a permit is increased, or the minimum wage goes up, or you got to pay for stuff done to the parking lot or whatever, that money is taken away from their profits. They have to find ways of cutting costs, because in a given market, you can't just raise prices, because If they could, they would have already done it. If you're running a business and you have a cost of an item, and suddenly you know you can get more money for it, you would have done it whether there was a parcel tax or not. You always, as a business person, you charge the most for the item that you can get.
So you have less faith in business people than I do. And I thought I was sarcastic.
I've got a quick question. We don't always agree on things, but I do have a lot of respect for you.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things that
I love the show. I respect the show. I watch you guys a lot.
You just don't like us. You respect the show.
Is it time for a group hug?
I only like one of you, and I'm not saying who it is.
Boy, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. We won't tell Roy. Your advocacy for affordable housing is something that I really respect about you. And I feel that with a parcel tax, apartment owners and people who rent rooms in their houses may pass that on to tenants in their rent.
Right.
How do you feel about that? And you've also managed properties, so you kind of know from both ends.
Yep.
Do you think that
Absolutely.
rents will have to go up?
Yes, they will.
Okay.
They will. I'm not going to lie about that. They will. I've been a property manager. If a sudden cost came in and I wasn't under some rent control law or like had a minimum, I would definitely pass that cost on to the people in those apartments. Most apartments are smaller than a house. So when I talk about that average $170 a year for a homeowner, it's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of $110, $120 for an 1,100, 1,200, square foot apartment. Based on the size of the place. The biggest problem with affordable housing, especially in Burbank, especially in Southern California, $110 extra a year is not the issue that is causing homelessness, that is causing people to pay, 2/3, 3/4 of their wages. It's the scarcity of housing. That is a much larger statewide issue at this point. We need to do more to, when we build in the city, build affordable housing. When we add units, we add them in dense locations so that people can get there and not have to go through a bunch of traffic. So that is a much more developmentally sound argument. I will tell people that if you're going to rent an apartment in Burbank, it's going to cost you an extra $100 a year. It's going to cost you an extra maybe $150 if you get a big 2 or 3.
Yeah, not a month.
Not a month.
Yeah.
A year.
Right.
But you're also moving here. Why? Because of the schools.
Yeah.
We have to get the schools up and running to the levels we want them to be at, right? Yeah. The pension liabilities from the CalPERS, the cost of teacher salaries, the ability to fund STEAM education, the ability to pay for the mental health services that we want our kids to have. That costs a lot of money, and it makes the schools better.
SRO officers, things like that, right?
All of that stuff. Yeah.
That's a luxury that we lost.
Exactly, that's right.
Well, I think we all agree that we need to get our schools more money.
Yeah.
We're just not on the same page with how we're going to get it to them, and that's why Roy and I are voting no on QS, and Konstantine is voting yes on QS.
I am.
And we are grateful that you decided to come on and share your side of QS.
Yeah. I will say one last thing. In every locale in Southern California that has added a parcel tax specifically for the schools, housing values have gone up, which is a little bit different than housing prices, right? The price goes up and down with the fluctuations of the market.
Sure.
But when we talk about the value of the house, it rises when the school district is good, because that's why people move here. That's why I want to remind everyone, the Burbank Realtors Association has endorsed Measure QS. So they're behind this because they know they work off of a percentage of profits. They know the home prices go up when you have good schools. So that's my last final thought.
Interesting.
Well, let's see. Who's voting no on Measure QS and who's voting yes?
Okay,
that's
all right.
the 2/3. You'll have to
This was 2/3 to pass, right?
Right.
You do need 2/3.
So that's right.
This, fortunately for you, this wasn't the official election. So thanks again for being on our show.
Thank you very much.
Konstantine.
I appreciate
all the
your
best.
time.
Thanks for all the work you do in our community.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time on the Mike and Roy Show. This hand.
Oh,
Rookie!
Mike and Roy.